freedom isn't the result of wealth, it's the foundation. Welcome to Wealth Independence, where freedom leads and real wealth follows through battle-tested strategies, hard-won lessons, and real-world experience. You'll discover how to accelerate your path to true financial independence. And now your hosts, Dustin Bailey and Adam Penn.
All right, welcome back to the Wealth Independence Podcast, where freedom leads and real wealth follows. I'm Dustin Bailey, and I'm here again with Adam Penn. Adam, you're joining us from the outdoor studio again this time.
Yep, still sitting out here in the great outdoors up in Bend, Oregon, and just still taking in the weather before I got to go back down to Chico. That's 100 and something degrees right now.
Back down to the desert, right?
Yep, basically in the summer, but
yeah.
It's nice during the rest of the year.
Yeah. Well, enjoy the time there in the beautiful greenery of the great state of Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon.
Yeah, it's Oregon.
Yes.
Yeah, we already went over that on the previous or the next episode, depending on which order these air.
We did. The point being, it is not Oregon. Don't say
that.
No. The people that live in Oregon will slap you around for saying Oregon, so you definitely don't want to do that. All right. Well, we'll dive right into this one. I think we might have, we've got some random collection of thoughts you and I have been talking about, and I think you had an investor conversation recently that spurred some of this. So I don't know.
Yeah,
tee it up?
Yeah, sure. And I think the general discussion today is going to be about just portfolio building in general, and not to go super specific on it, but I think where I'm going to kick this one off is just so many people build up this portfolio of stocks, honestly, in going into retirement, right? They go through the roller coaster of the down markets and the up markets, and they probably have some dividends, but it's not really what they're betting on. And they sell some things and they buy some things. And they probably day traded the account for a little while, and then they handed it back to a financial advisor. Long story short, this is at the end of the day, people are like, oh, well, you're going into retirement. You need to move this into maybe a less risky asset, some treasury bills or more bonds, and change it. And I think maybe what this has kind of stemmed in my mind in the conversation that I'm going to start with here is, why the hell would you do that? Like, why would you take all your time, your whole life, building and understanding this portfolio and how it functions and how the markets move, and advisors you trust that have executed on this plan for 50 years, and then blow the whole thing up when you need to rely on it? That just seems stupid. The more, some of this is coming to me right now, but that just sounds dumb. And so, I'm going to dive loosely into my portfolio, but when I first started, right out of college, I was a high W-2 earner. Not high, but making $80,000 a year, and slowly moved into six figures, and that was great. I was able to buy real estate with that, and every time I bought a piece of real estate, and it made $1,000 a month, let's just say. They were short-term rentals, and I was doing a lot of the work, so it was normally about $1,000, $2,000 a month. Well, all of a sudden, you get 4, 5, 6 houses into this game, and you're now making more than your job. And it didn't take 50 years to build a portfolio, and you're still building appreciation with it, right? And so that's one thought, right? You can go be a landlord and work for it, right? Because being a landlord is an activity. It's not truly passive. I think it's more passive than working 40 hours a week, but to each their own. There's other ways of doing it. You can buy it and hand off to property managers, but that's not really the thought here, right? So, once you buy your first rental or invest in your first passive investment, you start getting some cash flow, right? We talk a lot about cash flow on this show. And you start getting some cash flow, and then from that, you're like, well, shoot, I have this silent business partner over here who keeps taking part of my cash flow at the end of every year. And if you make too much of it, they want to take it quarterly. I had someone ask me the other day, how do you get away with not paying your income taxes quarterly? I said, the government doesn't take any of my income at the end of the year. I'm not required to file it quarterly. You start looking into exactly what I just said, which is, how do I pay less money to the government, right? And so you're like, okay, well, there's depreciation on the real estate, or maybe there's this oil and gas thing I can do. Maybe there's a business expense, start a business and have something there, capitalize some equipment. There's all these different items, but so then you start building all these pieces, right? They're puzzle pieces that go together. And so where my puzzle pieces sit right now is, the bulk center of my puzzle is a bunch of real estate that I manage. Maybe I have a team around me. I've got a handful of VAs. And then that real estate pays for me to live, right? It doesn't buy me a jet. It doesn't buy me a new cabin every two days, but it pays for my life, right? And eventually, hopefully, it grows to where you do get all those things, right? Because it kind of keeps growing on itself. And then, outside of that core piece, you're like, okay, what can I do to not lose any of this to taxes? Depreciation is a huge one. So, okay, you bolt on another piece of property and you take some depreciation on it, right? The new tax bill that just came out took bonus depreciation back to 100%. So you probably offset a lot of income and gain more passive income by buying another property, right? Don't just do something to generate a loss, but if it's a good investment, get it and offset some income with it. And then you've kind of got the outlying outside of it, right? You've got some cash. Where's that going to sit? It shouldn't just be in a checking account. Probably put in some T-bills or money market, make 4 or 5%. And then you've got some more unique things. You got some maybe oil and gas investments, which we've done a lot of. And that's normally for me, I'm looking at the end of the year and I'm saying, okay, I've got this tax issue that I need to deal with that's outside of just my I'm not going to go buy another rental property, right? It's November or whatever now, and I don't want to buy another rental property. So I'll tack on an oil investment, a $50,000, $100,000 oil investment. That'll give me $50,000 to $100,000 of write-off. Now that's going to offset the other little bulk of income. And then if everything goes well, it'll start producing income. So then next year, I've got another little bit of cash flow, right? I mean, I've got a handful of oil deals now, and each of them spit off $500 to $1,000 a month, and it's cool, right? You get these little checks, and that's passive for me. I mean, it's truly passive. Other than the ones that I manage, if I didn't manage any of them, like I didn't have to go give distributions to investors, file K1s, and all that. I mean, there is nothing that I do other than a check hits my account, which is cool. So you start to bolt all these pieces together. And I think what I'm driving to here is I was having a conversation with an investor and they're like, we do want to get more cash flow in our portfolio for retirement because they have a lot of equities. And where then you start to find investments that kind of piece that together. We have an oil and gas deal we're doing right now. I kind of pitched to them, and it has both of that. We go out, we buy existing cash flowing investments, which are wells. They're producing cash flow, and we take some of that money, we reinvest, and we distribute some of it. That grows over time. Around year 10, there's this massive appreciation, but in the interim, you're getting cash flow. Mm-hmm. So if you keep bolting on these pieces to this puzzle, I think that's where you end up getting a portfolio that's truly allowing you to retire. You're not just hoping the whole time that the market doesn't crash.
Well, that was a lot. No, I mean, man, there's a lot to unpack there. I think you kind of hit on, you basically described this whole, I think the way you and I view investing and view constructing a portfolio, which is we've kind of got an end goal and we're putting different pieces of the puzzle together in order to achieve that. And we're kind of picking and choosing based on what's needed at a given time. You reference like, okay, it's the end of the year, need some tax breaks, might be too late to buy a new property and get that in service, but we can do an oil deal and get some tax breaks that way. And so I think that's one of the big takeaways from what you just said was like, I think people are better served by, man, I kind of don't know where to start on this. I think at the very top, you got to know your goals. Right. You've got to know where you want to go, what you want from life. And so many people just have this vague, and I was guilty of this too, right? It's like you hear the advice, save for retirement. Okay. So you just throw money at a 401k and there's no real plan for that, right? Like, it's like, okay, I guess it's there and someday I'll live off of that, but you don't really.
And you're actually not allowed to live off of it until that day.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can't touch this money that's supposedly yours, but there's some strings attached, some very heavy strings that are attached.
There's no retiring early on a 401k.
Exactly. And so like so many people just do that because it's the default plan, and it's better than, I would say, if you're thinking about not saving or you don't have anything at all, that's probably better than that. But it still is, you're going to get out of it what you put into it, which is not very much. Whereas if you take this more active approach to, okay, I know what I want. I want to retire earlier. I love my job, but I want some extra income over here from investments that's completely passive so that I can take trips or I can.
Even if you only said, I just want to make $10,000 a month off of my investments, right? Like then you can start breaking that down into pieces, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. It doesn't have to be something as big and aspirational as I want to quit my job. You could even just set a dollar amount of passive income, and then that will slowly snowball. To your point, those amounts grow, and then that starts to introduce new problems, and you recognize, oh crap, I'm sending more money to the government than I really would like to. How do I deal with that? And you start slowly constructing this overall portfolio, and it's constantly growing, evolving, changing based on the investment environment, based on your needs, based on the regulatory environment. There's tax changes. So like it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. And I think like one of the things that you and I have both constantly seen among people who manage their wealth well is that they're very actively involved, right? Like this is not a passive thing to them.
I have a story on that. So the other night I was hanging out with some old coworkers. It was like a little get together. The old coworkers I was with as a software engineer, someone was retiring, and I was talking to one of them, and I was talking about the deals that we do and things like that. And I can tell that I pitched them deals before, and I can tell that after, I've talked to the wife and I've talked to him independently at this party. And they both said, "Is that not a Ponzi scheme?" And I'm like, "No, not really. I mean, each deal's differently, right? Like, and they're all, they're like the LLC owns the real estate." And I'll try to explain it to them. And they kind of just nod and smile and move on. And then together they said it. So I'm like, okay, so this is the thing they say inside their heads. Mm-hmm. And then their kid is into crypto, made all this money in crypto, he wants to buy a Section 8 home. It's like, but they can't qualify for a Section 8 home. I'm like, well, they could do a DSCR loan. Like they've got cash and the money and the property will pay for itself. And they kind of just look at me, nod and smile and move on. They're never going to look into any of it, right? They're never going to invest with me. Maybe I joked with my girlfriend that if I show up with a Rolex on my wrist and a brand new BMW, that'll might break them out of the mindset. But the showing them a P&L, any of that, showing them all the deals, I can drive them around town and show them the stuff I own. They don't care. But where I'm going with this is, we know Ken McElroy. We've had lunch with him, dinner with him. We've been to his office, spent days with him. We've been to different countries with him. He's a great guy. He's very wealthy. He's very successful. He's very smart. He's very underspoken. He's not a flashy type of person, except for his red. He's not the one with red shoes. He likes some red things, but he's not. He's a very nice guy. But the point I'm getting to here is, if I was sitting with Kenny, and he said his son has in crypto made some money and wanted to buy a home, but he can't get a loan on it, right? And Kenny knows how to get a loan on a Section 8 home, but whatever. Kenny's like, you can't get a loan on it. And I said, well, you could do a DSCR loan and this, and this, and he could do it. Kenny would perk up. He would listen. He'd want to know more. He'd want to know everything about that.
Yeah.
And then he would go look into it and he would execute on it. And he'd have a conversation, versus I think a lot of people, to your point, just kind of hand it off and forget it. These people I were talking to didn't want to learn. They didn't want to know the thing. Mm-hmm. And to your point of the people we've seen that are incredibly successful, they take charge in their own thing. And that doesn't mean they're working 24/7 and researching every new thing and following every tax bill. But when they have a problem and someone is offering a solution or like some advice on it, they're interested in it.
Yeah.
Because it's worked for them their entire life.
Yeah. No, that's a great illustration. And I think like if one of the worst, it's not the worst, but you're not going to grow. You're probably not going to have the success financially if the whole thing is, well, I just hand it over to my money guy. I got my money guy and he takes care of it and sends me my statements and I see the number go up and I'm happy. Like that's again a very, very passive way.
Especially if that guy's just investing the S&P 500.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Or and specifically he's investing in the funds offered by his company that track the S&P so that he gets extra kickback for bringing more money into those funds. And there's nothing wrong with having advisors, right? Like you want to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. I mean, that's, we have advisors, like that's great. But there's a difference between saying I'm going to go get an opinion and I'm going to get the perspective of someone who knows more about this thing than me. I'm going to understand it, and then I'm going to take action, versus completely abdicating responsibility for a very critical part of your life to someone else. And that, I think, is, you kind of have to address that thing first, that, okay, I am going to take control of this. Now I'm going to set my goals. And I know I have a very clear objective for where I want to be, what I want to be doing, what my wealth, my income, my passive income, my investment goals are. And then you start to assemble those pieces to get there. And that's going to look different for everybody, right? It's a very unique sort of process, but it's not passive. You do have to, and you can invest in things passively, but the management of those, like deciding what to do and how much and where and what different pieces you need. And I need to deal with a greater amount of appreciation because the passive income's starting to kick up. And we got bonus depreciation back this year. And I know I've got a lot of passive income that needs tax shielding. So I need a big depreciation deal this year. Those sorts of decisions you've got to be very active in, and no one else is going to do that. No one's going to unless you're at the level where you're outsourcing effectively most of your management to your family office, and you've now got investment professionals who are solely dedicated to making all of those decisions for you, which again, we're talking about very, very, very high levels, not going to be most of the people listening to this. You've got to take ownership of that stuff and set those goals and start to construct that portfolio to meet those goals.
I don't have anything else on this. I think that's if people are interested in these types of discussions and building out their portfolios, and we're not financial advisors, but we got a lot of places we can point you. They're not all just our deals. Reach out to us. Happy to have discussions.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a good point too. If you're talking to other people and other sponsors and they start only pointing you towards their own deals or suggesting that all of your wealth should be with them, I mean, that this gets into another layer of this whole discussion. You get some people that want to start putting a whole lot of money with certain sponsors and in certain deals, and they get overweight. And that's a part of portfolio construction that you have to be mindful of in terms of risk management. But we certainly refer people to other deals and to other folks that we like who might have something that's going to meet an investor's current goal. They say, hey, I'm looking for this. I'm like, well, we don't have anything, but I know so-and-so who does. And I think that's more of whether it's us you're reaching out to or other people, you want someone that's going to be collaborative like that. So no, Adam, I appreciate you bringing that up. But yeah, we'd love to have a conversation. Again, we're not financial advisors. We've got experience in some of this, and we're happy to share our perspectives and at least try to point you in the right direction. But if you haven't taken charge of this sort of financial future and have just been passive, maybe this is the kick in the pants that you need to, take charge of that and start making those active decisions, setting those goals and assembling that portfolio. But good deal. No, this was good, Adam. I can tell you've got a lot of, you and I we've talked about this some, but I can tell you got quite a bit of passion for this. So this is good stuff. Anything else you want to add?
Nope. I'm ready to get out of here.
I
think it was a great topic.
I'll let you get back to enjoying the great outdoors there in the state of Oregon. But for everybody else, we appreciate you listening as always. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Just remember, where freedom leads, where wealth follows. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for joining us on Wealth Independence. This show is for informational purposes only and is not financial, investment, legal, or tax advice and does not constitute an offer to buy or sell securities. All investments carry risk, and investors should always conduct thorough due diligence and consult with qualified professionals before investing. Until next time, remember, freedom leads and real wealth follows.